There are moments in history that never make the headlines. Moments too quiet for cameras, too personal for politics. This story is one of them. It happened not on a debate stage, not at a press conference, but on the sunburnt edge of a forgotten town near the southern U.S. border. A chain-link fence, rusted with time and neglect, stood like a scar between two worlds. On one side, dreams and promises. On the other, waiting, and a boy. He had been coming to the same spot every Saturday since he was 5. His father told him that one day, someone important would pass by. Someone who would notice. Someone who might care. At first, the boy believed it would be a soldier. Then, maybe a journalist. But over the years, hope shrank. His shoes wore thin. His voice, once loud and bright, fell to whispers. Still, he came. Still, he waited. Then, one day in the final weeks of his presidency, Barack Obama's motorcade rolled quietly into town, without press, without advisors, without fanfare. Just a man and a reason. He had read a letter sent by a border school principal. A letter not intended for the world, but for him. And he responded, not with a speech, but with a drive. That meeting, brief, wordless, yet unforgettable, would mark both lives forever. This isn't a story about policy. It's about presence. It's not about what Obama said, because he didn't speak. It's about what he did when no one was watching. And it all began with a boy, and a fence. He didn't know his full name. At least, not the way the world writes names. What he did know was that his father called him, Mi Esperanza, my hope, and his mother used to whisper, Mi pequeño milagro, my little miracle, when she tucked him into the torn blanket on the coldest desert nights. He was born on the southern side of the U.S. border, in a village too small for Google Maps. It was the kind of place where time forgot to look. But somehow, every Saturday morning, time remembered him. Because every Saturday, he stood barefoot in front of the same chain-link fence, staring into a country that didn't know his name. He wasn't waiting for food. Or toys. Or even asylum. He was waiting for something harder to ask for, to be seen. The fence wasn't just metal. It was a mirror, reflecting who mattered and who didn't. And in that reflection, he practiced what he would say if someone important ever walked by. Excuse me, sir. Or maybe. Can I show you something? He had a drawing once, of his school, before the roof collapsed. He had kept it folded in his shirt pocket for months until the ink ran and the paper turned to lace. Still, he waited. Some weeks, a border patrol vehicle would slow down, then speed up. Once, a group of church volunteers came and handed out bottled water, but none of them spoke Spanish. Another time, a cameraman filmed from the U.S. side and waved. The boy smiled. He thought the man might come back. He never did. Then came the letter. It wasn't written by the boy. It was written by the principal of the nearest border school on the U.S. side. A woman who had seen the boy from a distance too many times, wondering how long a child could wait for an invisible door to open. She wrote about him, not with anger, not even with pity, but with something rarer, respect. She mailed it to the White House, never expecting an answer. She received none. But someone read it. And that someone circled a date on the calendar. December 19, 2016. 3 days before Christmas. 1 month before a new president would be sworn in. There were no news vans when Obama's car pulled up just after sunrise. No Secret Service in black suits. Just a beat-up SUV with government plates and one familiar silhouette stepping onto the sand. The boy was there, as always. Thin. Still. Hopeful. He didn't recognize the man at first. The man wore no tie, no badge, just a jacket zipped up to his neck and eyes that didn't scan or measure, they listened. He approached slowly. They didn't shake hands. They didn't speak. Instead, Obama knelt down, just enough to meet the boy's gaze, and nodded once. It was the kind of nod that replaces words. The kind you give when you recognize someone. When you honor them. The boy blinked. Then, in a moment too fragile to rehearse, he placed something between the fence's rusted wires, a small paper star, made from a food wrapper, folded perfectly. Obama took it. He didn't say thank you. He just looked at it, held it, and nodded again. And then he turned and walked away. No photo. No press release. No campaign. Just a moment. But that moment, quiet, unrecorded, would echo in a place louder than any microphone, a child's belief that he wasn't invisible. Later that night, the boy's father cried for the first time in years. And the next day, the star appeared, taped to a corner of a bookshelf in a back hallway of the White House, near the exit no one used. When the staff asked where it came from, Obama only said, "It's a promise. Not to be forgotten." And that's how history is sometimes made, not in speeches, but in silence. Not by leaders who shout, but by those who kneel. There are things that never leave you. The sound of gravel under your mother's sandals as she runs toward the border patrol truck, the final glimpse of your home turning into a blur behind a dirty bus window, the cold hum of fluorescent lights in a migrant holding facility where you learn, too early, that silence is safer than questions. But some things stay not because they wound you, some stay because they remind you that you once mattered. Even if only for a moment. That morning with the man at the fence, he didn't know the name Barack Obama. But he knew the eyes. Eyes that didn't rush. Eyes that didn't flinch. Eyes that made him feel known. Years passed. The boy, his name was Mateo, was eventually granted entry, not by policy, but by luck. A clerical error, a kind interpreter, and an overworked caseworker who simply chose compassion. He arrived in Arizona with nothing but a plastic bag and a memory. And the star. Folded now into a smaller square, worn from years in a shoe sole, tucked beneath a worn insole so it wouldn't get lost. He never told anyone about the man at the fence. Not the volunteers at the shelter. Not the teachers who helped him learn English. Not even the adoptive aunt who took him in and gave him a bedroom with a cracked window and a bed that didn't creak. But late at night, when the air turned still and the desert wind brushed against the siding of the house, he would take the paper star out, unfold it on the windowsill, and whisper the only thing he remembered in English from that morning. He nodded. It became his prayer. His North Star. In high school, when a counselor asked what he wanted to be, he didn't say doctor or firefighter. He said, scene. At 16, he wrote his first op-ed. It was about invisible children. The ones who weren't in the textbooks. The ones who didn't get counted in the census. The ones who stood at fences and waited for the wind to change. It didn't go viral. But it made it to the desk of a former White House speechwriter. And through a chain of emails, a short film was made. It didn't feature him. It didn't need to. It featured a child's hand pressing a paper star through a fence. No voiceover. No caption. Just silence. And it moved people. One of them was Obama. By now, he was long out of office. A private citizen. A writer. A father. A man still carrying the quiet weight of 8 turbulent years, but also something smaller. Something still folded in a drawer in his study. The same paper star. He didn't remember the boy's name. But he remembered the eyes. So when the foundation invited a young immigrant speaker to deliver the keynote at a leadership conference, and a 17-year-old named Mateo stepped up to the podium, Obama didn't blink. He remembered. Mateo spoke for 6 minutes. No script. No teleprompter. Just the truth. I was never supposed to be here, he said. But someone once reminded me that presence matters more than permission. He never named Obama. Never pointed fingers. Never told the story. But when he finished, and the applause washed over the auditorium, Obama stood, not first, not last, just quietly. And when Mateo stepped down, he approached. And this time, Obama didn't kneel. He hugged him. The kind of hug that says, "I remember, even when you didn't ask me to." And Mateo whispered the words he had rehearsed his whole life. "Thank you for seeing me." Obama's reply was simple. "You were never invisible." And just like that, the voice that never left became something more. It became legacy. Not the kind carved in stone, but the kind folded in paper. Passed from one child to another. Whispered across fences. Lit in the dark. And tonight, somewhere near the border, a new boy waits at a new fence. He doesn't know it yet. But he's already part of a story that was never about politics, never about borders, and never about fear. It was always about being seen. And sometimes, being seen once is enough to carry a child a lifetime. No cameras. No seal of office. No coordinated staff trailing behind in sharp suits and practiced smiles. Just one man. And a memory that wouldn't leave him alone. Barack Obama had been many things in his life. Organizer. Senator. President. Father. Symbol. But in the quiet hours, when the world didn't need him to be anything, he remembered one role most vividly. Witness. There had been thousands of photos. Babies kissed on campaign trails. Veterans saluted. Classrooms visited. Victims embraced. He remembered them all, or at least tried to. But there was one image that had never made it to the front pages. A child at a fence. Holding out a star. He hadn't forgotten the weight of it. How its creases folded awkwardly from tiny hands. How it trembled ever so slightly as the boy held it out through the mesh, not asking for anything, just being there. That moment had changed him. Not in the theatrical sense. Not the way speeches claimed transformation. But in a subtle, haunting way. Like a tune you hear once and then hum for the rest of your life. And so, years later, long after the world had moved on, he came back. Not to that same fence, too much had changed. But to a new one. A facility in southern Texas. Low profile. High security. A place where headlines rarely reached, where volunteers were monitored, and compassion was regulated. He didn't call ahead. He didn't bring a film crew. He didn't want to make a statement. He just wanted to look again. The guards didn't recognize him at first. Dressed in jeans, a windbreaker, and a faded socks cap, he could have been any man with a tired smile and careful eyes. But when they scanned his ID and saw the name, their posture changed. They offered to clear the center. To prepare a space. To alert the press. He shook his head. "I'm not here for that." Instead, he walked the perimeter quietly. The hum of air units buzzed above. A chain-link fence shimmered under the southern sun. And behind it, shadows of children moved like ghosts. Some played. Some didn't. Most just watched. Watched the world outside. Watched the man walking past. Watched hope pass by one more time. Until one girl, maybe 8, maybe 9, stepped forward. She didn't run. She didn't wave. She just stood there, eyes wide, uncertain. And he approached. Slowly. Calmly. As if the entire weight of the world depended on this one movement. They stood face to face, separated by metal. Then she reached into her pocket. And unfolded, a paper star. Worn. Wrinkled. Purple crayon on one side, a faded name scrawled in Spanish on the other. Mateo. Obama felt his breath catch. The child didn't say a word. She simply held it up, eyes not pleading, but asking something much harder. "Do you remember?" And he did. But he didn't reach out. Instead, he placed his hand gently against the fence. And she mirrored him. Finger to finger. Silence to silence. It wasn't a rescue. It wasn't a miracle.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that move the world. Thanks for watching.